What is going on, wrestling fans? Welcome to the Tapped In Indie Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Heath Mullican, joined as always, the man behind the controls, the man who runs all of Georgia, Nick McDaniel. Nick, how are you today?
I'm good, man. Today's the big day, right?
Today's the big day. That's right. I had jury duty. It was I've been on the grand jury this year, and that so once a month I've been going in, and so I had to vote early for today. Man, I'm so pumped for today's episode. I got to go to two shows last weekend, and if you want to know more about the shows that I went to, listen, we are putting out lots and lots of stuff on Patreon and YouTube. You can become a member today, patreon.com/tapped out pod. You can also become a member at YouTube. Listen, I recorded. So here's what I'm doing. I'm going to the gym in the morning, and then on my way from the gym to my house, I am recording these hot takes, whatever you want to call it. Recorded one on Skrilla. I recorded a couple on the South Carolina show, went to Pro Wrestling Turbo. I recorded one, a hot take after the show, and then there was a fan incident at the show that I recorded an episode about. You want to hear that? And then you got a real special one coming up you're recording tomorrow.
Yeah. So the digital release was this past Friday of the Unbreakable Bunch. Look, friend of the show, Ray Lloyd Glacier. We kind of did a thing before the movie was released theatrically. Now, I've talked to him and he reached out and wanted to come back on and kind of promote the digital release. Of course, I said yes. I mean, obviously I would. So we're going to record that tomorrow. It'll be available, obviously, early to the Patreon members and then releases out to the public at some point after that. It'll depend on him. I'll ask him, if he has a date he wants it out by or something like that. But yeah, man. And look, we might even do something special. We've discussed doing a little special. We all purchased it. Me, you, and Myron, we all purchased it. And by the way, I'm kind of encouraging people to purchase it. Don't rent it. The price is so close. I know, it was $5.99 to rent, $12.99 to buy on Apple, the Apple Store. Support, that kind of project. It'll hopefully open up more potential projects down the road for a lot of the people. And how cool, you know what? I don't want to spoil anymore because we're going to do this. If we do this special, then I want to save a lot of what I had to say for that specifically.
Listen, I'm just going to tell you the $12.99 to buy it, worth it just to see Haku, Ming, King Tonga, whatever you want to call him, just to see him do a variety of things. It was very entertaining. And it also, like, I've never met Glacier. Obviously, I want to meet him. You guys have said he's one of the nicest guys ever. But, like, just over the there's just, I want to meet Haku. Like, he's one of the wrestlers I've never gotten to meet. You hear the stories that are so legendary, but then you kind of see him and, like, you want to talk about somebody who seems to be the complete opposite of their own screen persona. Just seems to be just super cool dude. And, like, yeah, so somebody bring him in so I can come meet Haku.
Hey, he might be at WrestleCade, I think.
I can't go to WrestleCade. I'll be at the beach. But anyway,
yeah,
I guess
you never know. You could. Wise choices, my friend. Wise choices.
You never know. You never know. Hey, speaking of wise choices, we're doing a giveaway for the show this Friday night. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling returns to Tannery Row Ale House. And you did a drawing, and we want to congratulate our Turnbuckle ticket winner, Marche Maddox. Won VIP tickets, including the meet and greet with Preston Vance, AEW star Preston Vance. And so, Marche, thank you for entering. Thank you for supporting the show. And you and Myron will be announcing another winner tomorrow.
Yeah, we did two different ones. We just had one where they could DM us, private message us, email us, and I kind of selected all of those. I've already reached out because of the way these shows air on a little bit of a delay. I've reached out to the winners, so they're fully aware. So that's kind of cool. But yeah, Marche, she had in her email, she pointed out how she's got like 3 little kids, and her and her husband love. And I was like, boom, there's your winner, right? The
Yeah,
random drawing.
right.
And then yes, we did the I did a one where if you went to their Facebook page and you liked the page, send us proof. That drawing will be tomorrow. So if that's how you entered, that one will be tomorrow. Slash, I know the time thing, and we've already done it. We've already know who the winners are. But so if you were waiting, that's kind of cool to hear who won. But yeah, man, it's a cool fun thing. I wish, and I want to encourage even more fans to come out to Turnbuckle on Friday. It should be a great fun show and get a meet and greet and all that good stuff or whatever. So absolutely, happy to work with those guys and give away some tickets. And who knows, maybe this won't be the last time we have this opportunity. So.
Yes, thanks to Turnbuckle for partnering with us. Great food, great environment. It is family friendly, entertainment, and it's a great way to spend a Friday night. So last week, right as we were getting ready to record, you had the breaking news about WWE ID. That news has been out a week, and now a lot of the other national podcasts are speculating, talking about that. You listen to a lot more wrestling podcasts than I do. And you mentioned something that Conrad Thompson was talking about regarding WWE ID.
Yeah, it was kind of a thing of like obviously none of this is actually in writing and out there as of recording. But he was kind of like, hey, I'm kind of led to believe, or I think this is what I've heard, or that kind of scenario, where that when they sign potentially these independent talents, essentially it's going to be an option contract as well. That if AEW does approach them and makes them an offer, WWE has a right to the first of right. What is it? The right of first refusal? Gee, easy for me to say.
Right.
Where hey, AEW's offering me a deal for $75,000. Blah blah blah. WWE can then say, you know what, we match it. We're going to bring you on. And so, but here's the funny thing is, we were real excited about this part of it, and I'm still positive about it. But they brought up something that we didn't even think about of like, hey, does this take away negotiation leverage by some independent talents? Because if they think enough of you to sign you to this deal, that hey, we're going to take a flyer on you. But what about the difference of they only have to match AEW versus, by the way, this is there's a big if this is actually true.
Right.
If all they have to do is match, I mean, whatever happened to AEW comes to you and offers you a deal, you go back to WWE and say, hey, they're offering me a deal. What do you got? And then they're going to throw out their best number because they're going to try to offer you. Well, if you've got this option set up where all they have to do is match, basically they're allowing AEW to set the market for free agency. They're not competing for a price. They're literally just saying, if that's what they're offering you, let's call it what it is. It's NFL restricted free agency, basically.
Right. Well, here's the thing, and this is where I think if WWE were doing this, there's not a lot of risk, because we are talking about, if this were Major League Baseball, this would be like single A, double A players who weren't drafted. You know what I'm saying? These are folks that are just getting started. I mean, that's a cool idea. Is what if there was a draft for professional wrestling? Anyway, so like if you're a wrestler, you've got, and we've talked to independent wrestlers all the time, and most of them have a number. Most of them have a number in their head of, this is what it would take for me to completely flip up my life and sign with a major wrestling company. And for some people, that number is bigger than others. So it'd be interesting to see. I mentioned to you, does WWE have enough money where, let's say, I'm just trying to throw out a name. Let's say they signed Jonathan Feltner. Let's just say Jonathan Feltner's not a wrestler. Let's say they signed Jonathan Feltner and they're like, hey, we're going to give you $500 a week for a year. And then you kind of go get your bookings, whatever. We're just kind of doing this to support. That's pretty good. I mean, that's on top of what you're already doing. That's pretty good money. And then at the end of the year, like if they don't really see improvement or if they're not hearing positive things, then they can kind of let you go or whatever. We're in uncharted territory. And to me, that's what's so exciting about it.
Right. Like, do they is it something with them? Is it a simple guarantee? Like, we're literally making this up, by the way, folks. We're literally
Yes.
like, hey, what if they did this or what if they did that? How crazy would be, hey, we're going to guarantee you 500 a week in bookings. And what if they go out of their way to help you get bookings at promotions? And now, if they get you $500 in bookings, which most people it's not going to happen, but if they got you $500 in bookings in a week or a weekend, they're off. They don't have to pay you. They got it for you.
Right. What I had a thought, and now it's here's a question. Are there people on AEW's radar on the independent scene that somehow aren't on the WWE's radar? Or has the WWE, by creating this program and partnering with some of the best schools in the country, they're almost getting first dibs? Like if a kid started training next week at the Nightmare Factory and like just has it, and it is very evident to see, does AEW even have a chance signing that kid? Because WWE saw him first and is going to scoop him up.
Uniquely, though, the question would be, specifically with Nightmare, that would be a tough question to answer.
Correct. That is correct. That's probably not a great
Booker T's promotion.
Example. Yes,
that's a great answer, right? But that's a unique situation. I think that's I think the Nightmare Factory is going to be the training facility with probably the biggest microscope on it in professional wrestling for the next foreseeable future, for the reasons that we know what they are, right? But they're just going to be, they are so uniquely positioned right now that there's a set of eyes from literally both companies.
I would love to. I think we were talking about this the other day about how many camps they had. I would love to go back from the beginning and see, this is how many people they've trained. This is how many people aren't even in wrestling anymore. This is how many people are wrestling consistently. This is how many people that are on the radar. This is how many people have signed. That would be an interesting.
I believe all of, don't quote me on this, but I believe most, if not all of the camps are on their YouTube channel, I believe, like the showcases and stuff like that. So you have a lot, and they'll usually, if you go back, it would take a lot of digging. You could scroll through their history on their social media. They have a photo of every camp, like, so you could actually see it. It could be done. Or we
challenge accepted.
Yeah.
Challenge accepted. We also lots happening in wrestling in AEW. I just saw the clip where Ricochet challenged Zack Sabre Jr. For the IWGP Heavyweight title. And somebody had put out, we both follow this guy on Twitter who said, look at what Ricochet's been able to do since he signed with AWE. Wrestled it at All In front of 50,000 people. Wrestled in Japan against Vikingo. Already had a great Ospreay match. He's in the international title hunt. Co-maining New Japan show. And the whole point was Ricochet just seems to be happier and kind of doing what he wants to be doing in AEW.
Living proof of something we've kind of championed for a while now, that there is a section of wrestlers who are built for one promotion or the other.
Yes.
Or maybe they're a better fit. Maybe it's the word to use. And Ospreay too, but Ricochet specifically is one that we were like, look, it was never a knock on Ricochet in WWE. It's just he didn't fit the mold of what they were looking like. He was useful in the role they wanted him in, but as far as like maximizing his abilities or his, because here's the thing, in AEW I don't know that they really care that he's not Mr. Charisma.
Right.
They're like, he goes out there and he just crushes it in the ring, and that's really what they want.
Right.
And so they're like, we can position him as a star because the way we look at talents and utilize talents, he is a star. WWE, not so much. So, and I think that's where a lot of fans in general lose it, is that they don't learn that they're looking for two different things. By the way, it's also why the camps and the schools and all those things matter. Like, hey, if everybody's going to go to these now because WWE signed them, no, because AEW is going to want a different type of wrestler.
Yes, and that's good. It's two different. We do not need one of my biggest complaints about WCW is when they were trying to be WWE light. We need two national promotions that are distinctly different. And I feel like we have that now. There's a clear choice of what you like, and you can like them both. I don't know if people know that, Nick. You can like them both. You can enjoy them both. Lord help us. So anyway, that's what I do. But anyway, it's always good. You know what? It's really, was there a promotion hurt more? I mean, Ring of Honor was definitely hurt with the creation of AEW. So much so that AEW bought them. But man, New Japan, I used to get their pay-per-views. I used to follow their storylines, and the birth of AEW basically took all of the stars I wanted to watch in New Japan.
And even still to this day, if somebody gets big enough that the fans want it bad enough, Tony seems like he's signing them and pulling them away.
Yes.
Like somebody got argued with me. By the way, this is you want to talk about a Nick hot take. If Okada and Tanahashi, or anyway, all these talents, if they don't get pulled over by Tony Khan, I don't know that Zack Saber's your champion. He's probably the guy down. He's probably the Intercontinental champion. But I'm like, he's not your champion, like the top guy. If there's not a constant tug of from Tony Khan pulling the talents, that's just my opinion.
I think they were definitely. I mean, Zack Saber's career path in New Japan has definitely been leading him to be the heavyweight champion. But this may be a year, 2 years earlier than what they were planning on originally. Anyway, lots of good wrestling out there, fans. I don't know if you realize that. A lot of good wrestling. Speaking of lots of good wrestling, Nick Halen, your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler, one of our favorite wrestlers. Nick, he joined you for this week's edition of This or That.
Hey guys, it is Nick here from the Tapped Out Wrestling Podcast Network. And for another episode of This or That, this week we are joined by none other than the game breaker himself, Nick Halen. It's Nick and Nick on This or That.
Hey.
Look, we're here live. We just wrapped up a great show, Southern Fried Championship Wrestling. Wasn't exactly the night probably you had hoped for. Very intriguing though. You got to come out and check out what's next in store for the Approved and a bunch of other parties here in Southern Fried, right?
Bunch of other parties, yeah.
I'm trying to be as political. Yes, I am. Well, Wes, let's jump right into it for This or That this week. Are you ready? It's
Absolutely.
like rapid fire answers. Coffee or tea?
Neither.
Okay.
White Monster.
There you go. Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Books or movies?
Movies.
Summer or winter?
Summer.
Texting or calling?
I'm still old, so I like to call and talk on the phone, yes.
One of my favorite questions, pancakes or waffles?
I'll take a little pecan waffle.
You know, you're a little older like me, so is it board games or video games?
It's video games, but it has Super NES, WWF Raw.
So he's old video games. Yeah. Given a choice, skydive or bungee jump?
Skydive.
Sneakers or boots?
Sneakers.
Train or plane?
Plane.
Fries or onion rings?
Depends on the restaurant, but I'll say onion rings.
Onion rings. This one's an easy one. Wine or beer?
Neither. They're for losers. White Monster.
Superman or Batman?
Batman.
Beer for me, wine for Kelly.
You say
The Todd Sexton run-in, you knew that was coming, right? PlayStation or Xbox?
White Monster.
Scary movie or comedy?
Comedy.
What's your favorite one?
Off the top of my head, you consider Back to the Future a comedy?
Unintentional comedy, yes.
Yes, still we'll say Back to the Future because it's
All right.
the greatest movie.
Podcast or audiobooks?
Podcast.
Who's your favorite podcast?
It's top to tap out, buddy. And then James E after them.
There you Dine-in or takeouts? Last one.
I would rather do takeout.
Alrighty. Well, guys, this is This or That with Nick and Nick. Nick, before we get out of here, kind of plug all your stuff and get it all in before we get out of here.
You can follow me on all social media platforms at Nick Halen Brand. We will be back here at the Monroe Boys and Girls Club on Thanksgiving night, which will be November 28th. You can catch me at OSWA on the 23rd for their hardcore show. And just keep tuned into my social media and keep listening to these guys talk good about me on their podcast.
That's right, man. Well, that's This or That on this week's episode of the Tapped In Indie Wrestling Show. We'll catch you down the road, guys.
So thanks to Nick Halen for joining our Nick McDaniel. Nick, I know you and Nick Halen haven't always seen eye to eye, but he seemed fairly pleasant.
Look, he knows it. He's one of my, favorite wrestlers here. I really like him. There sometimes, behaviors, we all have friends that do things from time to time we don't approve of, no pun intended. But it happens. But I appreciate Nick for taking the time to, to do a This or That with us, and can't wait to tease the special guest for next week's. It's a unique one for sure.
Well, and fans, if you have a favorite independent wrestler that you're like, hey, I'd like to hear a This or That with that person, let us know. tappedoutpod@gmail.com, and we'll try to hit them up and make sure we capture the moment with them. Speaking of capture the moments, let's jump into this week's Indy Rewind. This was my first double shot in quite a while. I decided maybe midday Friday, I was going to head down to Royston, Georgia, to the good old Royston Dome, SCA, Square Circle Action Wrestling. And Nick, very late in the game, you'd have decided to come join me.
Literally, like you were going, you're already talking. I think you were already talking about leaving to go. And I was like, all right, man. Look, my wife wanted to watch a football game on the TV. That it was a high school game. I just wasn't really, interested in it. And she can get rowdy when she's watching football. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go to a wrestling show then. You enjoy your game. And I hopped in the car. And I want to point out a crazy thing. How crazy is it that it's closer to you than it is me? It took you less time. Let me back up. Time-wise, it took you less time to get there than it did me.
Yeah, it's about an hour, right at an hour from my house. And there's a Whataburger on the way. So that was, that was plus. I may or may not have hit that Whataburger twice Friday night. Hey, something to check out. SCA's got a TV deal. They also put their stuff on YouTube. Luka Daniels and Alexander Lev join Blake Blackwell on commentary. So you want to go check that out and hear what those guys have to say. Adds a lot to it, but sometimes we agree with those guys, sometimes we don't, but I'm interested to hear that. One of the big things from the week before was Jonathan Feltner. There was an emergency. He couldn't find his phone. We found out he got home and there was no emergency. And so they spent the evening looking for Jonathan Feltner's phone. But it was clear that he and John the Body Johnson not on the same page. There was some tension in the building. There was also some really great action. A young man you and I have been following, Christian Taylor, who had to get a psych evaluation. And it appears he believes he's a lumberjack.
There's a crack in the mental foundation of Christian Taylor. Yeah. I will say this. It made for an entertaining, sight. It made for an entertaining match. Love the new gear. That was all, I I will say this though, and like I've said it to a lot of parties involved there. He looks the part. I'll tell you that. He looked like a lumberjack. He was cut to shreds, and he's out there, So I'm like, okay, I believe he's a lumberjack. I'm down with that. That's so I could see him getting up and whatever mental state there that's causing it. I could see him looking in the mirror and going, "I'm a lumberjack." I'm like, okay, absolutely, I agree.
He and James Boulevard, things quickly spilled to the outside. They've been going back and forth the last couple of weeks. They ended up in a double count out. One thing that I want to mention for fans that have never been to an SCA show, it is very much presented like a Monday Night Raw. There are like pre-taped backstage segments. Like they put that up on the screen. Like you can watch the match. They've got a projector, so you can watch the match on the screen. It's a different feel than maybe any other promotion in Georgia because they are a weekly show. You have to understand you're seeing one part of a 52-week episode. I also want to mention we finally tag team champ Cirque du Dolor had a successful tag team defense. Ballinger and Nikki Hyde. This is my first time seeing Nikki Hyde. I was very impressed with that young man. The big match of the night, two big matches. We had 6-man action. Stevie Ray Frost, Dexter, and Tower with, I have to mention, Rick Page in their corner. Took on Drox, the number 1 contender, Cliffhanger Chris, and Tyler Beach. They end up winning. Tower gets a choke slam. How surprised were you how much the crowd was cheering for the heels in this match?
Well, they cheer for Tower.
Yes.
They hate Rick Page.
Yes.
And they were not a fan of all of the other parties on that side. But I think here's the question. I don't think they're going to overcome how much they dislike Rick Page and
right.
and all those and everybody else on the team. I'm starting to question, this long dominant reign that Towers had. I dare say, is he starting to win this crowd over, in the sense of he's been so dominant? Is he becoming? Is it a respect level more than anything? The problem is he's got the stink of Rick Page attached to him, and so he's got to break away, But so that's kind of what's holding him, I think, probably from being completely embraced. But that's a question that I ask. That he may be crossing that line of, we've seen heels forever, these dastardly bad guys who just progress in a dominant way to the point that finally the fans are just like, all right, we just respect him. He's just good.
Like I mentioned, Drox is the number 1 contender. He was in this match. One thing that you and I made note of is we're pretty sure those two guys never touched during this match. I really liked that aspect of this. Here's the thing. I would be very curious how they book this going forward, what this is going to look like. Because when you have a champion like that, it was the same thing with Hulk Hogan. They had to book King Kong Bundy, Andre the Giant, to put Hulk Hogan at peril.
Mm-hmm.
Like you didn't really believe, he was at peril. I remember Hulk Hogan wrestled Lanny Poffo on a Saturday Night's Main Event. You pretty much knew Lanny Poffo, the genius, was not going to beat Hulk Hogan.
Right.
But when it was Magnificent Morocco or one of these other folks. So I'm going to be very curious because how do they put somebody like Tower, who, again, sorry, no pun intended, towers over everybody else on that roster? It's going to be very interesting to see how they do that.
Yeah, it's the 7-foot monsters don't grow on trees, even though it may feel that way at times in wrestling. They are few and far between, and so it's hard to find somebody in there. So you're going to have to probably go the other route. You're going to have to find that the underdog who won't quit to be the guy. That's but the question mark we always talk about: who ends the reign. It's who's that guy, right? Like, who's the guy that's going to be able to do that? That's SCA's $1 million question.
That's right. That's right. The Georgia Heritage title was on the line. Xander Seabolt defending against Hunter James. Hunter James actually, for a brief moment, won the Georgia Heritage Championship, but the decision was reversed when the referee realized Hunter James had used a foreign object to obtain the pinfall, and in the ensuing carnage, Xander Seabolt was able to get the pin and successfully. I think that was his first defense of that Georgia Heritage title. He had his second defense. We'll get to in a minute. But Xander Seabolt continues to improve, and I think with his promo and this win showed how much that title means to him.
100%. And look, sometimes it works the other way. We always talk about, hey, the guy, use some, dirty tactics, but a win's a win in the record book. It is what it is. Hey, Seabolt has a win over Hunter James, who a lot of people, put on a high level when it comes to the pecking order, in Georgia. And we'll get to why, another will follow up here shortly with why. But, as of today, if you look back at the record books at SCA, Xander Seabolt has the win over Hunter James in a defense for that title.
Yes.
So that's a notch. That is a heck of a notch, for Xander Seabolt.
Well, the night ended with a reveal that Jonathan Feltner had installed security cameras there at the Royston Dome. And that revealed that it was John the Body Johnson himself that had stolen Jonathan Feltner's phone. And he really, when confronted with that fact, just left, really did not have a lot to say. And so the big question is, what's next in this conflict between Jonathan Feltner and John the Body Johnson? What's next for Tower? They have announced that Black Friday is when Drox is going to get his title shot against Tower. That's going to be a big show. And make sure you're checking them out. You can check them out on YouTube, but go down to the Royston Dome every Friday night. Check out SCA. Saturday night, you guys were down at Monroe, Georgia for Southern Fried Championship Wrestling. And there was some heat left over from the previous show, and everybody was wanting a piece of Hunter James and his crew.
Yeah, man. Look, I guess we're going with the Crusade. That seems to be the name. If I'm wrong, I'm sure Hunter will reach out and let me know. But they, between Todd Sexton, Judias, they want a piece of them. Nick Halen, Adrian Hawkins, Bobby Moore, the approved, they want a piece of them. But here's the thing. I'm going to broadly just go ahead and say this, covering this whole show in one fatal swoop. The Crusade marched through this show and just absolutely swept the night. And I think, and I'm going to get to something that happened at the end of the show to prove a point. Numbers matter. If there's anything, a lesson that we should have learned from the Four Horsemen, from, and name any faction after that, the numbers game is a real thing in wrestling. And they went on and just cleaned house throughout the night.
Obviously the Crusade sweeping through, more on that in a second. That's the main story. The second story seems to be several debuts on this show. Michael the Flying Fro Walker. I believe this was his Southern Fried debut. You had Christian Taylor debuting, losing to Bobby Moore. Luke Da Silva just debuted on Southern Fried, and he had a shot at Xander Seabolt's Georgia Heritage title.
Listen, man, like you said, 3 huge debuts and opportunities for 3 young talents. This was, and I think could be lost on how big of an opportunity this was. for all three of these young talents. I don't think it'll be the last. Look, everybody's going, oh, yeah, they all three lost. It happens. In debuts, it happens. By the way, they were all in there with some pretty good talents. Yes. One with a Georgia Heritage champion, one against a veteran like Bobby Moore, and then, of course, Seth DeLay's been around for a long, long time as well. So for those three guys to take a loss, it's a simple thing of me looking at them, and I specifically spoke to one of them, chin up, take it happens, learn from it, get better, and I'm sure this is a debut because I got a vibe that all three of these young men will be potentially back, sooner than later at Southern Fried Championship Wrestling, which is huge for those three.
Yes. Yes. De Silva did fall short to Xander Seabolt. Hunter James, for lack of a better term, weaseled his way into a shot at the Classics title held by Billy Buck.
Mm-hmm.
And to say this match ended in controversy would be a drastic understatement.
Yeah, this is it's like a developing theme, and it's and I'm going to get to again. There's something that happened to close the show out that I think is really going to drive home the point of you're just not getting a fair shake with this group. If they're all out there, it's total chaos, and that's how this goes down. It's like, oh, hey, we're trying to help, backfires, boom. Next thing you know, Buck's out. He's knocked out by Nick Halen by mistake, I guess. We assume. And then, boom, Hunter James is your new Classics champion. So immediately the Crusade is literally collecting gold right out of the gate.
4 big title matches. We mentioned the Georgia Heritage title, the Classics title. The Southern Fried Heavyweight title was defended by CT Keys against CB Suave. And CT Keys getting a big win, I think. That is a big win against CB Suave. And then the tag titles were on the line. Nick Halen and Adrian Hawkins taking on Judas and Todd Sexton. That's a rematch from Crossroads, but Grillo and Pat Roach inserted it into this match, and just more chaos.
Yeah, you can see if you're reading the notes and all. Yeah, we think we're getting one finish, and then there's chaos there. It literally. By the way, we also found that Pat Roach and Grillo are your new Southern Fried Tag Champions. That's obviously the end result here, but it's just a total hey, we think we're getting settled into this, but then we find out Kat Spencer's also in this in the Crusade as well. She gets her hands on Kelly Sexton, and that's where a lot of the confusion began because she gets her hands on her, gets physical with her. Then there's a mistake of, was it somebody in the approved did it? No, it's not. Blah, blah, blah. All things led to something real simple. They had a conversation post-match of Todd offered his hand and said, listen, we've got to come together or we don't stand a chance against this because they're going to divide us and just basically pick us apart every time they get an opportunity. And they tried to hey, let's do this. Let's shake hands. Here's the crazy thing. Who would have thunk that it's Nick Halen and the approved that are we don't trust you, and they walk out when it's them. It's an odd take, but they better. That was kind of the motive, right? They got to get on the same page because I still have question marks. I still think potentially there could be more pieces to this puzzle, but you're just outnumbered at this point. It's just that anytime you go out there, you're going to be outnumbered, and you just can't allow that to happen.
Can you remember? This has literally just been a month. In less than a month, the Crusade has debuted, and now they hold the tag titles, the Classics title, all but the heavyweight title and the women's title in Southern Fried. Has another group ever become so dominant so quickly?
No. And that's like that. And you brought it up. Kat Spencer is she's a legit contender for that women's title jump absolutely. Look, that's the group is full as far as the male, talents. You could say, look, no disrespect to Taya, he's not taking CT Keys' title. I mean, after I sat there, I watched them and CB crush it, just absolutely, put on one heck of a show. By the way, tip my cap to both of those gentlemen. Pushed each other to the limits, and even after that win, the acknowledgement of respect between those two, I think CT Keys, gets a look at the old veteran CB Suave, he still can go, and it's like, oh, okay, hey, I got you. You're still, but yet CB going, hey man, you're still king. I got you. You're the champ, paying those respects, because it's hard for anyone to press CT Keys like CB did that night, and they went out there and actually just tore the house down. But on the other hand, that's my point. If you're in the Crusade, my question is, Crusade, are they smart enough to just stay away from CT Keys?
Or, hey, we'll watch your back. Come join us. Maybe, who knows? All we know is that it's going to be an intriguing season here at Southern Fried Championship Wrestling.
And
yes.
By the way, I want to mention, because they announced at their show, their next show is the annual tradition, Thanksgiving night.
Oh my!
They run there at the Boys and Girls Club on Thanksgiving night, and they always. It's weird. If you ask me about Thanksgiving, I would just think, oh, that's a bad night. It's not for Southern Fried. Every year they do really, really well. I think everybody gets that early ham and turkey and all that food in them, and they just want to go out and see some good old wrestling, and they head over to Monroe, and they do really, really well.
So are they doing a show in between, or their next show's not until
Nope.
so it's about a month, so about 4 weeks out.
So they're jumping all the way. Their next
Wow.
big show is Thanksgiving, so they're back to the and it's like I said, they always deliver on Thanksgiving night. So keep an eye out and follow them on social media, because I'm sure you're going to see more and more details of what's going to go down.
Interesting. One promotion that has come fast on the scene is BullPen Pro Wrestling. They had another big crowd. They continue just to be on a hot streak. Lots happening on this show. J-Rod and Shawn Nelson, they've been going back and forth. That match ended in a double count out, and J-Rod has demanded a bull rope match. Don't see those a lot in Georgia. December 7th, coming up at the Temple Rec Center. Just want to mention Brady Booker. I think, was this his debut or maybe his second time?
No, this is his debut. Yep.
Debut. He teamed with Eddie Honcho to get a win over Dante Diamond and Chris Kamikaze. Mr. B was unmasked and revealed to be Brad Lynch, and he would kind of make some noise later in the show. Big match. Zach Buchanan got a win over Michael Stevens when Super Destroyer came out and cut some of Zach Buchanan's hair. Zach demanded a hair versus mask match for December 7th. Before Zach can get out of the ring, Brad Lynch jumps him, DDTs him, injures him. So now Bill Buchanan has challenged Brad Lynch to a cage match December 7th. Mercenaries is the special guest at referee. Shane Knowles is the gatekeeper. December 7th, you're like, oh man, that's good.
It's a loaded card.
That's a loaded card. And then they add the Bull of the Woods Championship match. I know these guys have wrestled before in Georgia. I think they have. I'm pretty sure they have.
Mm-hmm.
The 6-month anniversary show, December 7th, Judas versus Cruel. Holy cow.
One of the most memorable matches I've ever seen happened in a Southern Fried ring, and it was these two gentlemen. Different incarnations, whatever, doesn't matter. I'm telling you, these two monsters, just when they go, it's the Bull of the Woods Championship. will
love
be
it.
aptly named, because I'm telling you, they throw haymakers. They throw that. Look, when I saw them go, they were throwing chairs. They were throwing guardrails on each other in the ring. There was literally a massive pile in the middle of the ring. And here's the blunt truth too. Pull a little bit. 2 phenomenal wrestlers, workers, whatever you want to call them, professionals. That's what they are. 2 professional wrestlers. And they will absolutely, I know I have something personal scheduled that day, but I'm already like, when I saw the date scheduled, I'm like, can I slide this? Can I move some things around and make it happen? Yes, I'm really, really trying, because that match alone's worth it.
Yeah, December 7th. No, December 7th. I am full up that night. I am already booked to a previous engagement, but I hope you get there and have fun and send me some pictures. So anyway, BullPen Championship Wrestling doing some great things. I was able to go Saturday night, Greenville, South Carolina. Let me just say, this was in the Judson Mill area of Greenville. Magnetic South Brewery. Sorry. Dude, this is a really cool place. This was a really cool venue. I mean, right up there as far as like favorite venues. There's arcade games there. There's skee ball. There's the bar. There's food. And man, just some really, really great action. This show opened with a triple threat match. Dre the Goat, Tristan Moody, and Diego Hill. And you want to talk about just the super indie style match. These guys just left it all out there. Tremendous match. BK Westbrook is the Pro Wrestling Turbo Heavyweight Championship in a little bit of a unique situation. It was a handicap match. He and his fiance, Ella Envy, one half of the NWA Women's Tag Team Champions, took on Fluff Man, somebody we follow. And it looked like Fluff Man had the win to become the new champion, but Ella Envy had put BK Westbrook's foot on the ropes. Match was restarted, and Fluff Man, the 2-on-1 advantage was too much for Fluff Man. There was some extracurricular activities before and after this match that, if you're a patron, you will hear my take on what happened. But it was very good. Listen, this show had a scramble match for the Turbo. There's actually a Turbo Scramble title. Brittany Jade, AJ Slambino, Florida Man, TJ Era, who might be the biggest wrestler in the Carolinas and Georgia, like physically big. Jake Manning, one of our favorites, and D'Angelo. This match had everything. And D'Angelo came out on top. Bojack, who's somebody you need to be following. I think he's been down at Viral. He defeated Don Furio to become the number 1 contender for the title. This show had a little bit of everything. Again, if you remember, you'll hear my hot take. There were some good and bad things about this show. One of my favorite things about this show was truly the circus. It had everything. And it had a Mad Dog Mayhem match, JP Lehman and Josh Powers. Have you ever seen JP Lehman wrestle?
I don't think so.
So he was a manager in PWX for a long time, and now is wrestling different places. And he's on some people's radars, and he is just really good, really entertaining. Kind of does the IRS. Not the IRS. He's more of a stockbroker kind of dude, but just really entertaining. The main event was TK Stark and Dean Richards. These guys have been going back and forth. This was like their final match, 2 out of 3 falls. The last fall was Bloodsport rules, so they took the ropes off and they took their shoes off, and it was a very, very intense match. But if you get a chance to see Pro Wrestling Turbo there in Greenville, it's always fun. And if you get to go see them at Magnetic South Brewery, get the tacos. I'm telling you, it was really good food. It was a full weekend. There was even more than that, but there's some of the shows we didn't hear a lot from. But let's move into who won the week.
Listen, man, it was a big week for sure. And I don't know. I'm going to ask you as we get into the who won the week, right? Is it even a question?
No. No, you put this in the notes, and I'm like, yeah, there's not even a discussion of who won. It's not like the election where, because, 50-50, you don't know how it's going to go. This was like a blowout landslide for the Crusade for winning the week. This came out of nowhere. You were there. You've seen it with your own eyes both times you were there.
Yeah, I mean, literally, the formation because think about this, it literally was the end, essentially the end of a show. The formation of this group right before our eyes, and then literally before the end of the next show, Hunter James is your Classics champion. Pat Roach and Grillo, they are your Southern Fried Tag Team champions. Basically, everybody's grabbing, everybody that was there that night was grabbing the titles. The only reason, you could make the argument Cat Spencer doesn't have one is because she debuted as a member that night and Teo wasn't there. Everybody else is racking up belts. So it's not even a question in my take.
Hunter James, he beat Xander Reyes in that brutal match. He'd had some title opportunities in different places. He just recently lost that Jake the Snake title. We mentioned he lost on Friday night to Xander Seabolt. And you could almost say that maybe in Southern Fried, Hunter James is kind of, hey, all right, you got to get at the back of the line. And Hunter James says, nope, not going to do that. And here he is now, the Classics champion.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, it's just the formation of this group out of nowhere. And just to that quickly, just literally pick apart. And by the way, picked apart the top. Like, they literally took the top guys, other than CT Keys. Again, the smart move would be if they're the Crusade is just leave CT Keys alone.
Yes.
But literally has taken out everything. Everybody else, they've literally methodically went through and took Billy Buck's, his Classics title, took Todd Sexton and Judas' tag titles, ticked off the approved along the way, put the boots to all of them in a wave, and literally walk out on top.
I mean, they beat 3 of the cornerstones of Southern Fried Championship Wrestling. Like, when you think of Southern Fried Championship Wrestling, you think Judas, you think Todd Sexton, you think Billy Buck. And these guys just came in like it was nothing. And they have caused sheer and utter chaos there in Southern Fried. And again, Thanksgiving night, that's going to be a huge night. I know you guys are going to be, well, no, you guys won't leave for WrestleCade to the next day.
Well, look, it's funny. We had a conversation about it in the back. Myron doesn't get to do shows on Thanksgiving night. It's an absolute no. Mine typically depends on when we do ours. Like, if it's early enough and everything's come and gone, I've made the show a couple years, like going over there. Some years I don't get to go just because of the timing. So we'll see. The hard part is, though, we usually are up bright and early the next morning and hitting the road, so that makes it tough. But I will tell you this: if it's a possibility, I generally make it.
Well, I will, like I said, I will be with my parents and unable to attend, but hey, I'll be able to watch it on YouTube. And if you want to go back, I'm sure these previous shows, if you want to see the formation of the Crusade and how that all came together, you can follow that at Southern Fried's YouTube channel. Let's move into something we haven't done in a while, and that is this week's Power 5. It has been quite a while since we've done a Power 5. Some of these names that we're going to mention have been on the Power Five before this year, and at least one is a brand new name. Let's start with Disruptor. Now, Disruptor Wrestling is done. They've kind of run their season. They're coming back next year. And I don't know what all we're allowed to say about where they're going next. But when we were talking about this, you were kind of listing some of the wins that Disruptor had this year.
Listen, we've talked about a couple, but like we were talking about how, like, do they get credit for bringing in talents? Like, look, that's kind of was our thing the whole season as it was going on. Every show, it was always like, hey, where else can you see this person, or where else can, like, I credit them a lot for the resurgence out of nowhere of Ben Bishop.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he kind of pops up there, and then before you know it, it's like, now, look, some people could argue, well, he got hot on Jeff, Jeff Jarrett started talking about him, and then Southern Honor brought him in, and, blah, and so, but my thing was, the first place we got to see him was Disruptor. Who else is bringing in, Randy Wentworth out of Florida, Better Together, Slime Season came out, they kind of brought them in. They brought AJ Francis in. They brought Casey Navarro. Now, Casey Navarro was hurt, but they still, they booked him and brought him in. They brought Alan Angels back home, and essentially it felt like the Disruptor was the only place really using him.
Right.
And which is crazy. I don't know, folks, because he lives here. I'm like, but so be it. Now, granted, he's super busy all over the country, so you got to get him well in advance. But that's Disruptor. That's just what they do. They bring in guys that it just seems like other promotions just aren't taking those risks.
They also gave us the tremendous series of matches between Slim J and Vari Morales. I remember you sent me the clip of Slim J like diving from the rafters or something like that. Pretty crazy. Anyway, Disruptor has had a great year, and we're waiting to hear their announcements for 2025. And again, they introduced me to Tannery Row Ale House, and have just had a tremendous time every time we've been there. Someone who has been on this list a lot this year, maybe every time we've done it, is Action Wrestling and Matt Griffin. Matt Griffin continues to be. He kind of gets run out of town at Southern Honor, and then he pops up 5 other places. Action Wrestling continues to be consistent. They continue to run multiple shows a month. They just had the big show where Bobby Flacco won that heavyweight championship, which you can watch on IWTV. But Action Wrestling continues to be one of the pillar promotions in the state of Georgia.
And then they did a Tennessee show. I mean,
yes.
They're obviously partnered in, heavily involved in the SCI. So they're like I said, but like you brought up, sure, Matt Griffin gets to, run out of Southern Honor, but he's forever pro. He's obviously already meddling in Nathan Mowry's, Blood and Honey series, the deathmatch cards here in the Atlanta area. It's just like, Matt Griffin's everywhere. He just, he's just literally inserting himself into any and every promotion, not to mention his own. And it's because we've kind of thought like, hey, is this literally like Matt Griffin's telling the world, I know what pro wrestling is. I'm going to teach these youngsters, Kevin Ryan at Forever Pro, Nathan Mowry, like he's going to show them the way.
Yeah, it's very clear he's just not a happy camper, and he's making everybody else miserable as well. But Action Wrestling continues to just do great things. Here's somebody who hasn't been on the Power 5. And how can you not list someone on the Power 5 when you talk about the list of Georgia talents that have wrestled NXT talent this year? There's one, and that is Skrilla. When you mention who has been to Reality of Wrestling multiple times this year, it's one. Who really has really the cornerstone of a promotion in such a way. He's not the champion there anymore, but Deep South has certainly certainly banked on Skrilla, and that seems to be an investment that's paying off for both of them.
He may not be the champion, but Skrilla is the heart and soul of Deep South
Yes.
wrestling. I mean, I think that's a clear and obvious, and sometimes that's not an abnormal thing in promotions where it's like the champion has to be the. There's lots of I don't know if that I believe. I always joke that Dusty was the heart and soul, even though a lot of the times he wasn't the champion. This is kind of how it rolls. By the way, we teased a little bit earlier. There will be a pretty insightful, Heath's hot take about Skrilla that airs this Thursday behind the paywall. So if you're wanting a good scoop on, what our thoughts of, by the way, I listened and I agree, that I was like, it's a very, sign up at patreon.com/tappedoutpod and check that out on Thursday. It'll drop at 10 a.m. on Thursday.
Yes. It'll be worth it. It was a very good, and a lot of these things that I'm recording in the mornings like that is a thought will hit me and I want to talk about it before I forget what I'm thinking. So anyway, next is, we just talked about him a little bit ago. BullPen Championship Wrestling has come out of nowhere. Consistently big crowds, 250 plus, over 500, over 600 once or twice. They continue to bring matches to Georgia and to Alabama that we're not seeing anywhere else. And then it's all leading up. I mean, December's they've just been here 6 months. And I'm anxious to start seeing, I want to start seeing some BullPen shows and matches online. I want to see some recordings, especially Bull, if you're listening, this December show, you got to tape. Because take my money. I'm not able to be there, but I would pay to watch online Cruel versus Judas for the Bull of the Woods Championship.
I tell lots of promotions, and look, I understand the one who do it for free. I get the concept. There's nothing wrong with monetizing your channel and putting your Jeff Jarrett. You brought up how I listened to Jeff Jarrett brought up the whole concept of national promotions, indie promotions. There's nothing wrong with monetizing your channel and putting the full matches behind the paywall. You could put up reels, highlights, or whatever out in front and go, but if you want to watch it, it's $5 a month or it's $10 a month or whatever, and every show's going to be behind that paywall. I encourage it. I know a lot of fans may not like that. I'm a massive proponent of it. That, and every now and then, hey, we're going to release one match that was on the card out to the public. So be it. Maybe 2 months after the show, when the next show runs, we're going to publicly put out one that was 2 months ago because we want everybody to see it. That's cool. That was my sidebar. Yeah.
Yeah. I definitely feel like there are platforms out there you can easily create a subscription model. Again, $4.99 a month seems to be a price point for all of them. And I was listening to a podcast the other day, and this was a promoter out of North Carolina, and their channel's $4.99 a month. He was saying they had over 300 subscribers. So that's like $1,500, $1,400, $1,500 a month just from their online stuff. That's not a bad day at the office there, Nick.
Think about if you knew every show when you went into your show that your payroll budget was covered just because of if you had a streaming service monetized correctly. By the way, folks, that's also if you have a advertising on YouTube making you some money, you're going to make a little on top of that too.
Yes. Yeah, there's lots of ways to make money in wrestling, and BullPen's making a lot of money selling tickets right now, so kudos to them. And then finally, in the Power 5, again, this is one we've talked about them since the relaunch. Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling, running. Sometimes it feels multiple shows a week. This is one of their slow weeks. I'm very curious, and maybe Scott or somebody can help us out. I'm curious, what's the total number of shows that they've run this year, if you include like the Monday Nightmare shows, that kind of thing, since the Wrestling at Southern partnership started, how many shows have they run this year in Georgia? I would be very interested to see that number.
You know what I want to see, because they pretty much already know. I assumed they know all of the shows are running through the rest of the year.
Yes.
I would love to see, like, since the return, how many shows are they going to have run or will run by the end of 2024? I agree with you. That'd be a great thing because here's the thing, man. I mean, by the way, tangent. When you're watching the Unbreakable Bunch, how cool was it to see that logo on posters and stuff? That was kind of cool.
Yeah.
All right, back. And it was funny because my wife was like, "Oh, so they," and I'm like, actually, when they filmed this, I don't even know that they knew. That's how long ago that filming was. Like, I don't know that they were, so
right.
Unique to say the least. But with everything we have learned in the last week with this WWE ID, we talked about it. The Nightmare Factory is going to literally have a microscope on it, just because it's, of the 5, I think it's in the absolute most unique situation out of even those 5 schools that are WWE ID designated. People, maybe I'm overestimating. I don't think I am. That thing alone, like, well, doesn't mean it. Well, I think it took Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling and even elevated it even more to a higher level, because it's a nightmare show, folks. So we don't, like, it is what it is. And so for to be associated essentially, like, hey, we don't know which promotions are going to be WWE ID designated or whatever. I have a really strong guess that I can give you one of them. By the way, could be wrong, totally. But I would be like, if the school's designated, kind of got an idea the promotion might be. Now, I can think of a good reason why it won't be.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
But I would have assumed the same exact thing because of the school. Right. And I would have been wrong on potentially both of those if I thought that. So if you wonder why, look, again, it's not like when we talk about the Power 5, a lot of people gets lost in translation of what we mean. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, you think they're the best promote. That is not what this is.
No.
Yeah. And so I'm like, we talk about the actual movers and the people like making others change. Maybe that's the best way to describe it. Like, you need to react to these promotions for whatever reason. I don't know that it gets any bigger in the last week. 2 weeks from now, I might come back and go, oh, I was wrong.
Yes.
But as of today, yeah, I think they are an absolute mover and shaker, and they deserve a huge position in the Power 5.
I'd be curious. The number of shows they've run, here's what makes them unique. Have they had the same match twice this year on any of their shows? It's such a mixed bag. It's like they just throw back, and I love it. I love it because you never know what you're going to get at a Turnbuckle show.
I would assume by mistake you've had the same match somewhere, as many shows as they've run. And I could probably, and look, and it's not a disrespect, but like somewhere lower on the card, they probably are like, oh, hey, we had these two guys work a couple times getting reps with each other, that type of thing. Sure. But like you said, I mean, it's because of the way the roster's designed, the way the cards are designed, literally at the last minute. Like, I can always a lot of times, and this is what I told somebody one night, they were asking me about it. I said, I can tell you if these people on the poster show up, I'm guessing there's a 6-man or there's a tag match and these parties are going to be involved, but I don't know who the third or the 5th and the 6th party necessarily may be, but I can kind of guess who are going to be in some form or fashion in some of the mix. But in general, no. Lots of different moving pieces.
Lots of different moving pieces. And fans, the only way to stay on top of everything that's happening in Georgia, again, is to become a member, Patreon and YouTube. I forgot to mention this earlier. Hey, on that YouTube, you got to hit that subscribe button. You got to hit that listen, here's what you need to do. If you're off work on election day and you've already voted, you're not standing in line. Even if you are standing in line, you go on that Tapped Out podcast YouTube channel. You just scroll through every video, hit that like, hit that like, hit that like. But you got to hit the bell. Ding, ding, ding. We need more cowbell. We need you to hit that bell. That means you get all the notifications. And that means when we upload the special member content, boom, you're going to get a notification and be like, oh, this is great. This is the greatest thing ever. Just a jam-packed week. I know anything you can share that you and Myron are going to be talking about this week on your show.
You name it, man. Look, we got Crown Jewel just happened. Lots of fallout from that. There is some talk. We are going to discuss a little bit some of the releases and what I think that means. There was a thing that we shared in our group text about about pay.
Yeah.
So obviously, I think there's going to be a conversation about pay, and I have a theory why these three were released. The big three that was released that we talked about. So there'll be some theories about that. Of course, we're going to promote everything that we're doing this weekend. Have you Friday? Did you ever figure out what are you still planning or trying to figure out where you're going to be or?
Oh, I will be with you at Tannery Row Ale House in Buford, Georgia.
Okay, so I think we're all going to probably be there then, and at the party, we had 2 ticket giveaways. Look, I felt like, hey, I kind of got to go, right? To mingle, and be there to shake the hands of the people who won the contest and things like that. So we're looking forward to seeing Marche and her family there at Tannery Row, Buford, Turnbuckle Championship Wrestling. But look, it's going to be a phenomenal weekend. We're going to dive into Southern Honor's got a card. I mean, there's going to be a bunch of other shows going on this weekend that we highly recommend. But yeah, so lots and stuff tomorrow. Like you said, man, subscribe somewhere, anywhere, and turn those notifications on. So it's anytime the new videos, because you got to remember, your specials. We got the Ray Lloyd Glacier thing coming up soon. Don't miss out.
I can guarantee you, as long as I'm going to the gym in the morning, I'm going to be recording something on my way home. And again, fans, we're so grateful for your support. Thanks for listening to the Tapped In Indie Wrestling Podcast, and we will see you at the matches.